But I want to hear about the mission itself. Like, I believe you went to Rio, but I don't know much about it. Tell me what your experience was like for those 2 years.
Yeah, so I served in Rio. You get like 6 week training. It's not really training. And then as you're sent out, uh, you have a timeline. We're supposed to wake up at 6:30. We get 30 minutes of exercise each day, and then the rest of the day is scripture study and serving the people, and walking around on the streets and eating the food that they serve you, right, and whatever that may be. And so I went 2 years without touching a wrestling mat of any kind. I got to do jujitsu one time, and then we kind of have a leader there, and our leader said, "Hey, you can't do that anymore." So that one time was all I got because they were afraid I was going to get hurt. And so, I mean, it was. I remember I was really diligent for the first 6 months about working out and doing my push-ups, doing my sit-ups, and all that. But 6:30 in the morning is a heck of a time to have to wake up, especially on top of how much time we're walking and doing all that stuff. And so, I really spent 2 years without really kind of having put aside the dream of being a wrestler.
Did like when you say put aside the dream, like you just kind of didn't think about it much and focused on what's right in front of you? Or do you mean I wasn't training or kind of both?
I would say both, right? Like I think obviously I knew that like going on a mission was a potential, sacrifice to, being coming back and doing it. There's lots of really good wrestlers that have gone on missions and come back and, and it hasn't panned out. So that was definitely like something that I was accepting in my mind, is that like I'm kind of sacrificing a lot of what I had before, right? There's a strong possibility I'm
Mhm.
not going to be good. And then yeah, I mean, it was hard to think in the future, partially just because of like what I was doing at the time was so far away from being a wrestler, right? Like I was trying to be as, um, kind and like as least self-centered. At least I'm trying not to think of myself all the time, and wasn't thinking about my exercise, wasn't thinking about necessarily how I can make my body, better in any which way. And I was just so different than the lifestyle I live right now, I would say.
Sure. And I'm just thinking, I don't know a whole lot about missions. I understand the concept, but is it more for you to go work on yourself, right? Or is it for you to help other people or a combination? And if so, is 50-50? Is it there,
I mean, I would say the the philosophy is that if you go and you dedicate 2 years of your life into helping other people, that is the best thing that you could do for yourself, right? Like I think the idea is go and forget about yourself for 2 years, and you'll be a better person for the rest of your life for it, right? And I agree with that philosophy in the sense that like that was I grew up so much mentally and spiritually because I wasn't concerned about myself, right? And because of that, I think that's I learned a lot more about myself, and learned a lot more about how what makes someone happy isn't necessarily being self gratifying, but rather helping others is probably the greatest thing for the soul.
sure. And when you say helping others, right? Are you feeding people? Are you helping build stuff? Are you just talking with them and hearing their feelings and helping that way, or kind of a little bit of everything?
A little bit of everything, but I would definitely say the thing we did the most was talking, right? Like um and that was part of the journey, right? Is having to learn Portuguese and become fluent in Portuguese. And so I
Oh man.
had to that was a, yeah, that was the first aspect of the journey. But you know I mean, yeah, I mean, I got to have to listen to and help these people out. And and obviously the goal was to bring others unto Christ, and that can be done a lot of different ways. um but I think the main way is helping them get through a lot of what they're currently going through, and listening to them, and you know just helping them feel God's love.
What did you learn from that experience, or take from it, or how did that help you grow? Or open-ended question here.
Yeah. That It's such a great question because I feel like on any given day I could give like 1,000 different answers. it was an incredible experience that I learned so much. And like, if someone were to ask me like the number one thing I learned, it was from talking to these people was I think that the most important thing you can do is surround yourself with the right people. Um, and that applies to, I wanted to be around certain people for, my career. Um, I would say the most important decision I made is, choosing who I was going to marry, and on top of that, like, yeah, I would say like choose who you're going to surround yourself with. Cause I think on top of like growing mentally and learning to be extremely, empathetic and sympathetic to a lot of people, as well as, seeing a lot of different perspectives, the thing that I kept coming across was the people that chose to surround themselves with certain people are good people, and the people that chose to, you know, uh, yeah, exactly. Like be around certain people, their lives were just elevated, right? And I think, I mean, you can see the success of a lot of people come from who they surround themselves with. I think there's a reason why I think Penn State succeeds so much on the level that they do is partially because when you surround yourself with the greatest, you're going to create more greatness.
I love it. Yes, surrounding yourself by good people. Okay, let's. So you do your mission. You come back. Now you're going to Nebraska. Like, where's your head at with wrestling? Because you kind of put it on the shelf for 2 years. Were you nervous about how you were going to be? What did it feel like the first time you got on the mat? How quickly did it come back? Kind of fill me in here.
Yeah, I definitely. So I remember being like nervous that I was just like gonna not pan out, right? Because I'd seen that happen so many times that you had these guys that were really good at wrestling, but then they don't pan out. Um, and so that was definitely like something in my mind. And I remember I got back on the mat. It was COVID. I came back during COVID,
Oh
so
God.
couldn't get into any wrestling room. My dad got the mats and we put it in a barn. And then I had a good friend of mine, Stockton O'Brien, who came and lived with me for a month. So we'd work on the farm and we'd wrestle every day. And I was, kind of getting my legs underneath me. And the wrestling came back pretty quick in the sense of like the thing we were talking about earlier, the feeling, how to do the moves. I feel like all of
Yeah.
that came back really quick. Um, and that was something that was a surprise to me. And then I got about 3 months of that. And then I got to go to Nebraska. It was the COVID year. It was weird. So the room was split. All of a sudden, we'd have to go in quarantine because someone got COVID. And like I said, like I remember being like, yeah, I took Ridge Lovett down the other day. I've got my wrestling back. I rode Peyton Robb out for a 30-second go. I'm back. Or, I'm figuring it out. And then competition came. And that was like the first time I realized, like, maybe I'm not, right? I think I beat Blockus in like my first match, but it was just scrambles. And then I lost to someone from Wisconsin that I should have never lost to. And then I lost to Ridge in the wrestle off. And I remember being like, I think I might just fade off into obscurity at this point, right? And then I, was blessed to have a red shirt because of having had COVID year didn't count. Next year was a red shirt. I was behind Chad Red. And, you know, at that point, I was extremely blessed that I got these extra years because I got this time to like, is it the wrestling that I need to figure out or is it something else? Right. And in a way, I had to forget some of what I learned on my mission, right? The mission was, you need to think about others and care about others. And, you need to, try to, you want the best for everyone. But, I think that there was almost an unlearning I had to do as an athlete that I needed to be selfish, right? I needed to be obsessive about me getting what I want, right? And I think at the end of the day, that's something that was, I feel like you still got to struggle with sometimes is the only way to win matches is to take what you want from the other person, right? The points come when you take it.
wrestling's so opposite from what, and you just laid it all out, but it's so opposite from what you experience in your mission to be selfless. Think about wrestling's like, no, it's about me and F you, and I'm taking that from you. You know, you don't have to be mean about it, but you do have to be what's the word? Not forceful, but like, yeah, you gotta go take it.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
yeah. It's like I said, I think it makes sense why, this is something that people struggle with, and it's something that's it's 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 hard to say because you want to explain to people you want to be a really good person, right? And I think that that still applies, and you can be a good person, you can be a good wrestler, but you know when you're in the practice room and when you're on the mat, you know it's not who's a better person who wins the match, right? It's the person who's willing to go and take, like I said, the other sports, it's get the ball across the line, right? Or put the ball in the net, or run faster. But like at the end of the day, the only way I can win is if I am completely callous to what this other person wants, and I take a takedown, right? Like I'm taking you down.
Yeah.
I'm taking those points from you.
Callous
It's
to what the other person wants. I like that.
yeah, yeah.
Like,
Callous
I
to
don't care
their
about your
what
feelings.
they want.